Hey everyone, it's Courtney, and today I thought it would be a fun idea since it is getting close to the holidays and a lot of us might be gift knitting. What better gift knit than a hat? So in honor of holiday gift knitting, I thought that it would be a good time to do a comparison video, comparing and contrasting two different hat patterns so that you guys can see which one y'all would like to make. Now, both of these hat patterns have a similar construction. Let me take my hat off to show you. I will say that the form is similar, however, the construction is different. Both of them are basically going to be a doubled layered hat. If you'll excuse me while I put my hat back on. Okay, all right, so today we're going to be comparing and contrasting the Basketweaver hat by Stephen West, which I recently knit, to another really popular item, really popular for gift knits as well as personal knits. And a lot of people have this pattern in their pattern stash. Are you ready? Drum roll please. The Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. A very popular pattern. It also has the double layer where you can change around the colors and make the inner lining a different color, just the same that you can do with the Basketweaver and the Basketweaver hat. So, okay, we're looking at both of these patterns, the Musselburgh by Isolde Teague and the Basketweaver hat by Stephen West. Now, both of these patterns, the price from the United States is going to be different when you put it into a currency calculator. So let's run down the price differences here, because both of these patterns are priced at 6 of the currency that they're using. So for the Musselburgh hat, it's at 6 GBP or pounds sterling. And with a currency calculator today, December 25, I was able to calculate that equals about 8 American dollars, 8 USD, American, United States dollars. Excuse my ignorance there for a minute. The Basketweaver hat, on the other hand, is 6 euros, and that translates to about 7 USD. So if we're comparing them based off of price, if you haven't added one of these to your pattern library yet, the Basketweaver hat is going to be the one that you're able to acquire at less cost to you. But let's talk about what is the value in a hat. If you're somebody that wants to be able to knit the same thing time and time again, obviously we could do that with the Basketweaver hat. We could knit with different colors or even different yarn weights. If you want to see my Basketweaver hat video, I'll break down how I knit this with a fingering weight yarn and whether I think that's a fine idea to do. As you see, I sacrificed to the brim a little bit. There's no brim on mine, but it's okay. I could have knit it longer, I guess, and did a brim. So for me, the fingering weight, really, it worked out fine. If I wanted a brim, I could have knit it longer. I want to make the clarification that just because the Basketweaver hat is written for DK weight yarn, that doesn't mean that you can only use DK weight yarn. You can definitely use different yarns. You just might have to be aware that you might get a different sized result if you're not messing with the stitch count a little bit, which I did. I added 12 stitches, but it's not a lot in the grand scheme of things. Now, if we're gonna look at the Musselburgh though, if you want a pattern that is super customizable, you can knit with a whole bunch of different types of yarn and different gauges. The Musselburgh is the clear choice. It's the clear choice. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you want a pattern that is super versatile, that you can use all the different types of yarn in your stash, pretty much, maybe not super chunky, I don't know. Maybe you could still use that too. I haven't looked quite to see the gauge range on this hat, but I know it's quite extensive. Another thing is that you can make a variety of sizes with the Musselburgh too. So the Musselburgh is sized from baby all the way to adult extra large. With the Basketweaver hats, now we can still make different sizes. It's just, it might require a little bit of finagling on our end to translate the Basketweaver hat into multiple sizes, right? Okay, so there you go. For ease of translating the pattern into different sizes, into many multiple sizes, the Musselburgh is probably the way to go on that one. All right. Another thing that we can compare is ease of construction. Now, this is going to be something that if you're a more advanced knitter, you might not necessarily want something that's going to be kind of knit that allows you to just zone out and watch TV. Maybe you want a little bit more interest, and maybe you can still watch TV as you're doing the Basketweaver stitch. You definitely do have to keep an eye on those knits and purls. So if you're looking for somebody who wants a little bit more interest, a little bit more intrigue in the knit, I would definitely recommend the Basketweaver hat. But if you're someone who is looking for a pattern that is nice and easy, maybe you have a stressful job and you come home from work and you just want to zone out in front of the TV with your knitting project going and just knit, stockinette stitch. Sometimes that is me. I don't have a stressful job, but sometimes that is me. And I would recommend the Musselburgh hat for that. So for that, both of these hats get a check. Now, if you're a beginner or if you're not a beginner, sometimes it's a good idea to look at the project pages related to a pattern to get an idea of any things that we'd like to incorporate into our finished project. So like any ideas or tips and tricks that you'd like to incorporate while you're making your hat. So I looked at the number of projects for each pattern, and I was actually I shouldn't say pretty surprised. I will say that the Musselburgh is a very well-known pattern. And as far as a pattern by Stephen West goes, I feel like the Basketweaver is almost a bit obscure. I wouldn't say it's an obscure knit, but it's definitely not one of those pieces, or it's probably not even like one of his most famous hat patterns. So actually the amount of projects that you're gonna find related to the Musselburgh hat is quite a bit more. There is 4.41 wait, let me go back and check this again. Okay, that number is correct. There's 41.8 thousand Ravelry project pages for the Musselburgh hat. Now, if I'm looking at project pages, of course I'm not going to look through all 41.8 thousand, but the number of Ravelry projects does correspond, I think, to more knowledge and information in the knitting community about this pattern. So if you look up Musselburgh hat on YouTube, it's likely that you'll find tips and tricks from a variety of knitters and YouTubers that have tried this pattern. And to knit this pattern, for example, I actually learned a lot from watching Knitty Natty's channel about the Musselburgh hat, and some things I didn't listen to the first time, and I was like, I should have listened to what she said about this. So next time I make it, I'm going to take Knitty Natty's advice into consideration, which, in case you're wondering what that is, it's that the pattern can come out a bit large, so knit a size down from what you think you'd be. The Stephen West Basketweaver hat only has about 186 projects related to the Ravelry pattern. I probably added the 186th the other day when I finished my project, although I'm not sure. It's possible that somebody else could have added another project more recently. I'm sure that there's a lot of people in the WestKnits community that are more than willing to offer any tips and tricks or any ideas related to making a Stephen West pattern. But all in all, if you are picking a project based on the wealth of information that's available online regarding making this project, the Musselburgh is probably going to be the one for you. All right. I had to flip the hat inside out for this. The final point is that if you are knitting a project based off of artisticness of it, I think that it's safe to say that the Musselburgh is a bit more simplistic in design, which can actually be quite in style and fashionable, especially in more recent years. I feel like we've seen very simple designs, very clean lines in high fashion especially. Now, if you want something that is very artistic, and if you want to have the ability to support a designer that is known for putting more color and more of his artistic vision into his patterns, I would recommend the Basketweaver hats. Now, both of these are very stylish, so we'll give both of the hats a check because they're both stylish in their own way. However, my personal bias is towards Stephen West for just this like remarkable creativity that a WestKnits pattern contributes to the world of knit design. So I think that's about all for my video today. I think if you tallied up the check marks that we gave, the Musselburgh did technically end up with more checks. However, don't get lost in that, and don't get lost in the sauce. The Basketweaver hat is also won out on a lot of our head-to-heads, a lot of our matchups here, and there's a lot of reasons to knit this hat. All right, I hope this video was helpful to you, and until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!